John and I have a good kayaking buddy that we used to go out with when we were living in Culpeper down on the Rappahannock River. And we found out not too long after we had left that I had left one of my kayaking jackets with him. I've now been here a year, so that tells you how long this exchange has been going back and forth, that I've been trying to arrange a time to get my kayaking jacket back. And we finally decided that it was just time for him to just mail it. And so we sent the emails back and forth, as you do. And I said, just put it in the mail, and we'll be glad to pay for whatever postage it is. Just let me know how much it is. And he said, don't worry. I'll pay for the postage. Jesus would like that. And I thought that was such a lovely thing for him to say to me. Jesus would like that. Because it's such a gentle reminder that I am a child of God. Richard, our kayaking buddy, is a good friend of Jesus. We've known him for many years and saw the delightful way that he cared for his mother, that he visited her in the nursing home, that he cared for all of their arrangements when he passed away, that he cared for his wife and his children. And so I can only tell you that Richard is a true friend of Jesus. And when he said to me this very simple act of paying for someone's postage, Jesus would like that. He was saying to me is Jesus loves you. And I love you because Jesus loves you. And because I know what Jesus is like, I know what you're like. And I want to do this one small, kind thing for you. I'm sure each of us have had experiences like this where our friends have done kind things for us. And it's just that gentle reminder that Jesus loves you. We sing that as children, right? Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And yet I find it to be one of the hardest lessons to remember as we go through life in middle school and high school and as adults and into old age, that Jesus truly loves us. At one of our middle school retreats in Virginia Synod, they do a version of Jesus Loves Me that is utterly obnoxious. It goes, Jesus loves me! And all of the kids screech and point to themselves. It's utterly obnoxious, but every time I heard it, I remembered that even these pimply middle school kids who were struggling so hard to find their identity, Jesus loved them. In What's So Amazing About Grace, Philip Yancey writes about receiving a postcard in the mail from a friend, and it had on it only 6 words. I am the one Jesus loves. He said he smiled when he saw the return address and knew that his strange friend had sent him this postcard. And he called him, and his friend told him about going to a seminar with a speaker, Brennan Manning. And he said at the speaker, Manning referred to Jesus, his closest friend on earth, the beloved disciple, as John refers to him. And he identifies him as the one that Jesus loves. And he says, if John were asked, what is your primary identity in life? He wouldn't reply, I'm a disciple or an apostle or an evangelist or the author of one of the 4 Gospels. But rather he would say, I am the one Jesus loves. And Brian Stoffergen writes about that passage. He says, what if I too came to that place where I saw my primary identity as the one that Jesus loves? How differently would I view myself at the end of the day? Sociologists have a theory of the looking glass self. You become what the most important person in your life, your wife, your father, your boss, your mother, thinks you are. How would my life change if I truly believed the Bible's astonishing words about God's love for me? If I looked in the mirror and saw me as God sees me? We've often heard about the different terms for love in Greek, right? In Greek, there are different words for this one word that we use. And I've often taught Bible studies about the differences between philos and agape. But the truth is that in John's gospel, he uses them both interchangeably. Agape, this deep form of love that God has for us and we have for God. And philos, this form of brotherly or friendly word, John uses interchangeably. They're the same. And what I think we can take from that is that for Jesus, loving and being a friend of someone is the same thing. We can't love someone who we don't know. We can't truly love someone who we refuse to talk to. It's impossible to really, truly love someone without knowing them at some level. Jeffrey Brown was a young pastor in Boston in the 1970s. And he says that he went out to his first church, his first call, and he wanted to be the pastor of a megachurch. And in his first year, they had 5 new members. And he realized it was going to take him a very, very long time to get to the 10,000 member church that he wanted to have. But at that time, preaching in Boston, he also looked around and saw the violence, saw the murder level creeping up faster and faster and faster. And he realized that if he didn't do something, no one else would. He started preaching against the violence that was going on in his own neighborhood. He started programs in his church that were geared toward reaching at-risk youth. He started inviting people into his church. And after about a year of that, he realized none of that was making much of a difference either. No one was coming in. And so slowly, he realized that he needed to go out into the neighborhood and listen. Slowly, together with a group of other African American pastors in his neighborhood, they started meeting in front of his church at about 10 o'clock at night and walking the streets until about 2 a.m. He said it was a very strange experience, he was sure, for the neighborhood to see people out in collars at midnight. But not the first time, not the second time, not the third time, but slowly after night of being out on the streets on Friday night, people started talking to him. And he said they did a very strange thing for preachers to do. They didn't preach. They listened. He said it was one of the hardest things he did in his life. But slowly, together with other community organizations, the homicide rate through these programs of being out and being present and really listening and finding out what was needed in the neighborhood, the homicide rate dropped by 79% over the course of 8 years. They called it the Boston Miracle. It's not just enough to invite others in, to reach in. We have to reach out. Jesus wants us to be a friend to those who so desperately need to hear the good news that Jesus loves me and you and you and you and you and you. And as it turns out, we need to have friends too. Reverend Brown starts by saying that some of the most meaningful conversations, some of the most caring and the most theological insights that he had happened not in seminary or in the church basement, but out on the street corner. And what we learn when we truly listen to others might shock us. No one is a stereotype. Each one of us is created and uniquely loved by God, just as we are. Now, Pastor Dave started his sermon last week by talking about what a strange experience it was to come and to be here just worshiping in the pews when he didn't have leadership responsibilities in the first service. And when we were planning for that service, he said, do you have anybody signed up to open the doors, to be our door greeter for Sunday? And I said, no, we didn't have anybody yet for the 9 a.m. service. And he said, well, I'll sign up. So I signed him up on the sheet. And sure enough, he opened the doors and stood. And last week I also learned that this was not a new program. I've learned that some of the best ideas that I think I have are not actually new. Somebody else did them before. And in fact, Don Mowbray started this program years and years and years ago of standing and opening the door, being right at the cusp of the outside and the inside, welcoming others in. That's what we're called to do in our daily life. Not every one of us is going to be a Reverend Brown, is going to work in the inner city of Boston. Obviously, that's not where we live. But each one of us has a unique place that we are called to. There are 2 or 3 people in our life that need us to tell them that Jesus would like it for us to help them, that Jesus loves us and loves them. Our graduates are right at the cusp of life where they get to ask themselves, how can I love others in this world? How can I truly be a friend to others? How am I called to use this life that God has given me to serve in the world? We may not be right at the cusp of that big decision that they are making, but every single day, in our own small ways, we should each be asking ourselves that question. How can I love others as Jesus has loved me? Jesus loves you. This I know, for the Bible tells us so. Amen.